Good afternoon and welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour show. Today we have a special guest with me who I met just a few months ago through a mutual friend. We have a whole life success expert and self-made millionaire, Rock Thomas. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Rock. He has an amazing background coming from basically nothing and worked his way into a millionaire status. And there was a lot of hard work along the way for him. He did a lot of studies in personal development, studying from Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and many more. His mission now is to help others lead not only a successful life, but a fulfilled one. And so many times we focus on happiness and success and trying to just get to financial freedom. But Rock has more to it than that. He tries to get people to be fulfilled in all aspects of life so that they aren't missing that one piece and feel this void. So I want to welcome Rock. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your time with us this afternoon.
Well, you know what? It's a beautiful day to be on the golf course, but it's also a beautiful day to be sharing the trials and tribulations of one's life with other people that are truly hungry. And the most recent phrase I've come up with is, tell me if you are curious and coachable, and then I feel I can impact your life.
Yeah, and that's actually true. Sometimes we're not in the space where we can be curious, and that leads us to not being coachable. We're just maybe too much trauma, or we're just not in the right space. So it's that nice, there are times when we meet people when we're ready to take action. And that's when someone like you can really make an impact in someone's life. So
Yeah, and you know that, the separation from the pack comes in the preparation. Separation comes from preparation. And so a lot of people do not have a plan to prepare for their future, for their greater life, for their financial freedom, for their healthier, more vibrant life. And so, I've been really, really passionate about what is that preparation process? What can you do in private that will affect your performance in public and allow you to have an epic life?
makes sense. And why don't we dive into your background, because you didn't always have it so easy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and just kind of a little bit of the story along the way?
Well, I learned that in life, if you do what is difficult, life will then appear easy later by contrast. And if you're the type of person that is just hoping your life is always going to be easy, then life will appear difficult by contrast because you just haven't built the muscle. It's like going to the gym and just lifting up the 5-pound weight, hoping that you're going to build the muscle. And then one day you have to lift up a 50-pound, bag of sand to stop your house from being knocked over by a flood. And you're like, I can't do it. So I was fortunate. I picked up a lot of 100-pound bales of hay as a young kid. I got up early in the morning. I had to fix things on a farm without the proper tools. So I learned to become resourceful. I learned to become the type of person that can figure it out even when there is no, real path. And all of those things have translated that when I go into the real world, I tend to have, some resources that I can work with. And at the end of the day, they're different for everybody. Some people grew up in an environment where they're good at listening and they're patient. Patience is maybe not one of my virtues, but I have other things that have helped me succeed. So I think that people should, if you're listening to a mentor or somebody like that, is you should look for the parts that you can add to your identity or to your character. And we get a little bit different from every person. Like I got a little different things from Deepak Chopra than I did from John Gray, or from Wayne Dyer than I did from Tony Robbins, or for going for a 5-day meditation retreat in India than I did from doing a warrior camp in the mountains in New York. So it just, what do you want to add to your life? Who's the person that has that result? Success leaves clues, as we know. And I've just gotten really intentional about helping people get back time in their life from my experiences by using the power of leverage. And so all my stories are based around what are the lessons I've learned, because I'm an incredibly curious and coachable individual. So I tend to learn quickly, apply quickly, and then I'm pretty good at teaching as well. So it just, depends on what people want to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've come to learn, time is pretty much one of our most valuable assets and resources that we have for us. And when you're high achieving and really growth oriented, that becomes more apparent. Sometimes if we're just kind of coasting through life, we don't really think of time as something that's valuable because we're not constantly pushing ourselves in all the arenas of life. So is this your idea of, growth in that? Where did it come from? How did you start to get into personal development and studying all these gurus in this space?
Yeah, great question. I think pain breeds passion. And again, if you've had that comfortable life and you don't hunger that much, but when you were literally hungry for food at times growing up, or hungry because you had to wear pants that were 6 inches too short because family couldn't afford them and people laughed at you and, oh, wearing the floods are not in style. Yeah. That pain can unleash a hunger to never be humiliated like that again. To not have the choice. You have to take the bus because you can't afford a car. I hitchhiked to go to my job at a ski hill. And I had to go hitchhike 5 miles in the middle of the winter there and back. And I worked the night shift as a 14-year-old kid hitchhiking at 10 o'clock at night and often walked all the way home. So that's enough to stir in you to pay attention to find out, well, what are the rich doing that I'm not doing? Oh, you know what? They have self-discipline. They drive a shitty car until they can afford to buy a piece of real estate that will pay for the expensive car. Yeah. So I really got maniacal about the mindset that I call get inside the mindset of a millionaire. And when you do that, you realize it's just a different set of rules. Yeah. They're not any more difficult. They're just in a different order and syntax.
Yeah.
So when I got that changed and impacted my life. And my father died of cancer, and that's when I became very intentional about my health. I was pretty good, but then I started to study what creates cancer. And I discovered that there's 3 major things. If you don't exercise and you eat really poorly and you're stressed, you create acid in your body that kills cells, that creates an environment that is open to cancer. So I decided I'm not going to do those 3 things to the best of my ability. Mm-hmm. So I exercise a lot. I tend to have a pretty good attitude, and I'm mostly plant-based diet, and I feel great. I'm virtually never sick, and I have tons of energy. So again, pain breeds passion. If you're not putting yourself in an environment where you're ever in pain because you take pills and you mute yourself and you distract yourself and you never try to live a great life and you just have that little thing you're doing, then you may never birth the part of you that was meant to be awesome.
Yeah. And I completely agree. So much stems from how good or bad you feel. If you don't take care of your health, other areas, even if they're full of success, they still take a hit because you don't have the energy to truly focus on them. If you're constantly worrying about your back pain or neck pain or foot pain, you just truly can't focus and allow yourself to be present in, growing your business, having a relationship with someone. It really impacts you in all levels. So it's important. And I know with you and your programs that you teach people, you have these gardens of life, which is nice because there is a focus on becoming financially free. I completely understand the importance of that because it allows us to expand other areas of our life. But at the same time, with your program, you're looking at all those gardens of life at the same time. Granted, you may focus on one versus the other, but can you dive into kind of some of those gardens and what you look at when you coach people?
Yeah, I think Steve Jobs died at 56 and all the money in the world couldn't save him from, I think it was pancreatic cancer. And then people say to me, well, health is your wealth. And I agree with that. But what I did, to your point with the 8 gardens, is I said, each garden is important. Imagine having a plot out in your backyard with tomatoes and with cucumbers and lettuce, and you walk by the lettuce and you go, lettuce, you're not important. Cucumbers are more important. Well, your salad is going to suck, right? So they're each important when you focus on them. And you should have a strategy and some rituals around it. So if you're going to focus on your money, you're in the money game whether you like it or not. So you could say, oh, well, I don't have time to make a lot of money and because I'm taking care of my health and my kids and my family and all that. Okay, great. To me, that's just a story.
Yeah.
And it's a bullshit story, right? And if you're going to fight for your limitations, guess who gets to keep them? You do.
Yep.
So I'm of the belief you can have it all.
Yeah.
And you can take care of each garden intentionally at different times. So I have my investment garden that I was really bad at most of my life, but I've gotten much better in the last decade. And it's had a monumental impact on my financial garden because I was really good at making money and really bad at investing it. So I'd make all this money, work my ass off, and then I would just throw it away, burn it, give it away to people that didn't know what they were doing because I didn't have a plan or strategy around that.
Right.
And when it came to, my health, I kept on learning over the years and slowly got better and better. And I wish that people would learn what I learned around plant-based diet, in high school. I still witness today, I don't know about you, but when I ask people, how's your diet? I almost get the same answer every time. It's pretty good or not bad.
Yep.
And then when I quantify it, and I give them some feedback and some other perspectives, they actually realize that their diet is terrible. It's just the same as most people, right?
Yep.
So everything's relative. There's a strategy for everything. But I like to help people win the money game by this premise that passive income is 10 times more valuable than active. Mm-hmm. So if you're making $50,000 a year, which is I don't know, you're making $5,000 a month, $500 a month passively, so from one piece of real estate you own, is just as valuable because that is going to continue to come in every month for the rest of your life, and it's going to grow for the rest of your life, and it's going to grow. I'm going to say that again, for the rest of your life, and it's going to grow. The only way that $5,000 shows up is if you go to work every day and trade your most valuable asset, your time, for money. So I get very passionate about talking to people about, on a short term, earn more, live below your means, save that money, and invest it and get some more team members earning income. Don't be the only LeBron James that has to earn money and can score points. Imagine if LeBron James played on a team and he was the only one that was allowed to throw the ball at the net.
Yeah, wouldn't work.
What if he was tired, he got sick, he got injured? The team would guarantee lose.
Yep.
But this is how people live their life, Amy. They have one stream of income, they have zero savings, they live paycheck to paycheck for the whole part, and then they're freaked out when a pandemic happens and they're like, I'm screwed. Yes, you are, because you had a bad strategy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And most people aren't exposed to passive income, horizontal income, however you want to call it. And to be quite honest, a couple years ago, I had no idea what those meant. I had never even heard of it. I had a job I went to every day. I had my doctorate. I was doing well. I had my house. And I remember thinking several years ago, how in the world do people get wealthy? How do they get beyond just giving a portion of their income every month to a financial advisor who invests it in the stock market? I knew there had to be more to just getting lucky in the stock market. And so that's when I started going to real estate investing conferences to learn. And I have to say, I was blown away. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, met Robert Kiyosaki, was blown away and dumbfounded because I kind of came from a background like you, where very impoverished and not a lot of education regarding finances and how to invest. So I'm curious, how did you get into investing? And do you do predominantly real estate investing?
Well, I put it into three classes: real estate, stocks, and businesses. And I'm in all three.
Okay.
Unfortunately, today, I'm proud to say I do very well in all three. But it took me a while. It wasn't always that way. I witnessed my father, who was self-employed, the second quadrant in the cash flow quadrant, go through periods of time where, he was buying new suits and upgrading his car and feeling good because he signed a contract. And then times when we were told that we needed to get a part-time job on top of our part-time job if we wanted to have a pair of jeans that didn't have holes in it because my father was in between contracts. Mm-hmm. And he would typically be forced to buy and sell real estate based on what was happening in his business. And it was usually at the worst time possible. He would buy when the market was high. He would sell when it was low. So my experience of real estate from that perspective, my mother never had enough money to buy a house. She always rented, was very weak. But when I was in my mid-20s, I borrowed all my money from my mom, bankrupted a restaurant, and was desperate to pay her back and get back on my feet. I had nothing. I had a $200 car, a red Toyota. I moved to Quebec City and I rented a room in the basement, became a flight attendant, parked cars at night for a hotel. And then I started reading a book called Nothing Down by Robert G. Allen. And I learned how you can buy real estate with no money. And it's still possible today. A lot of people don't believe it's possible. You have to be creative, yes, and you have to look for the right deal, yes. Mm-hmm. And I bought this small little house that had 4 tenants in it, in rooms. So I had one room and I had 4 people in the house, but they paid for all the bills for me of the house. So I lived rent free. And when you can eliminate about what typically is 30 to 40% of people's expenses, and you can divert that into investment or paying off debt, it's a game changer. Yeah. And so that's how I started. And then I started to realize that real estate grows and you don't have to pay for all the money. Banks will lend you money when you get your credit correct. So I got very excited about doing that and I've amassed, millions and millions and millions of dollars of real estate. I own a real estate company with 200 salespeople on top of that because I got good at selling. And now I teach people how they can do any piece of that. What do you want to do? Which is the vehicle? Do you want to go in real estate? I know people that are masters in all parts of it. If I'm not, I know people that are really good in the stock market. And I know people that are buying businesses and I own a bunch of businesses. So just choose from the buffet of passive or horizontal income vehicles. And then guess what? Get educated. Yeah. Like you can't expect to make $100,000 or $200,000 a year without getting some more information and becoming an expert in a piece of that field. So that's what we do in part of our masterminds.
That's impressive. And it's completely true about the education part. That's how people gain confidence and you then can learn how to spot a good deal versus one that's kind of shady. And I know part of it is really taking action, education being step one, and then finding the correct mentors. So one of the things I like about your mastermind is you bring people who are excited from kind of pretty much all over the world and you help them grow in all these areas of life. But there is that push for developing the horizontal income because obviously it's helped you incredibly in your life and it's allowed you to transform and, basically set the life that you want. So.
Yeah, well, to your point, we basically go through the 8 gardens in the first 3 months and we clean them up, we weed them out, right? Because if you're physically not in a good place and you're low in your energy and you're not operating this machinery very effectively, you can't put in the 10, 12 hours a day that might be necessary to move the needle to clean up your money garden. Yeah. So we go around and we look at where is the biggest pain in what area of your life, and we go, okay, let's clean that up because it'll have a ripple effect on the rest of your life. And once we've weeded that garden out, we can create some energy there, we move to the next garden, and bit by bit, they all have this ripple effect on each other. And before you know it, you're in momentum, you're excited, you're starting to make things happy, you feel better about your body, you're getting, confirmation that there is a way, there is a better way. And so we've created 65 millionaires, what we call whole life millionaires, in the last 4.5 years. And we continue to impact people we had a guy that started with us that was $30,000 in debt. Yeah. And he borrowed the money to join, and now he owns, 3 years later, 530 apartment doors.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's incredible. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I could tell you stories, somebody who lost 100 pounds and became an Ironman, and you may have seen that story recently, Dan Grebe, who helped a boy with muscular with Down syndrome run an Ironman. Now, I met this guy 5 years ago. He was 320 pounds.
Wow.
Now
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. And so he believed that he had to sacrifice his health to be a good dad and a good provider. And when I met him, I remember meeting him where I met him at a convention. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you coachable and are you curious?" And he says, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, are you willing to leave that belief behind that you can't have it all?" He goes, "I don't know." Yeah. I said, "Okay, just give me some time. Let's work together." And now he's an inspiration around the world, right?
Yeah.
And all of that happened because of that conversation. I know I'm taking a lot of credit here, but it was the seed of possibility.
Yeah.
And then we point them to the resources that can create. So if anybody's listening to this and you're thinking, oh, well, I can't do that. That's impossible. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. You just haven't had access, in my opinion, to the right environment, ecosystem, or knowledge to give yourself the chance to perform at that level.
I completely agree, because it really comes down to a lot of times of meeting the right person who has walked that path and who knows little tiny hacks, little ways of getting around things, that it just shifts your belief system, shifts your mindset, and it opens you up to new possibilities. And you did that for Dan. So it's a huge thing, because obviously no one in his life at that point had opened up a new path for him. And you did.
Yeah. I mean, the way you opened up a new path for me for breathing, right? Mm-hmm. So you helped me change my perspective on what was possible. And I believe a great coach, that's what they do, is they say to somebody, you've been looking at life by breathing this way. You've been looking at life by budgeting this way. But there's actually a different, more effective way. And you can unleash a new part of yourself. You can be in less pain physically. You can be in less pain financially. Just because you happen to come across this thing called trading time for money and working at a desk in a cubicle, that's what you were exposed to. It doesn't mean that there's other things that aren't available.
Yep.
How curious are you to discover that you can own a laundromat? You could, there's a million things you could do. You can own, somebody owns a bunch of ATM machines all around the world. A lot of them are independently owned.
Yeah.
And they're making money by people just going up and do you accept the extra fee of $3? Somebody's making that because they had the wherewithal to buy an ATM machine and to stuff it in the corner by the grocery store. So
it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So I also want to talk a little bit about your Goalcast video. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because you had over 100 million views. So tell us about it.
Yeah. It's so funny because as a kid growing up, I was told and laughed at by my friends and my brothers and sisters. They're like, don't talk. You can't even put string words together. And I think that on some deep unconscious level, I became a public speaker to quiet that voice, right? I'm not enough as a speaker, as a sibling to fit in and to have the right to converse. That what if I became a public speaker and an author and a trainer and a coach who could then say that I wasn't enough in that area? But never in my life did I think that I would have a YouTube video that is one of the most successful on the planet, that's been seen by 100 million people, that I've received probably by now 100,000 individual messages that I can't even keep up with. Wow. And I think the relatability is simply this. We're all given labels, most of them negative, growing up. Yep. You're stupid, you're skinny, you're pimple face, you're ugly elbows, whatever it is, right? Yeah. And we're so innocent as kids that we take them on and we believe them. Yep. Make them part of our identity, as I like to say, right? Mm-hmm. And then we repeat them in our mind over and over again, right? I better wear a long sleeve shirt because I got skinny arms, or whatever it is. Everybody has their thing. Oh, someone calls you hairy. Oh, you got a hairy back. You look like a gorilla. Oh, never takes his shirt off in the gym. Yep. There's a million things. We all have these little fears. And I learned how to overcome the label and to upgrade my software. Mm-hmm. And it took till I was about 30 years old to learn how to do that from my mentor. And when I did, the sense of freedom I got was monumental. And so the Goalcast video is the story of that. In it, it's called pizza face because I had acne. So I go, everybody's got a pizza face, yep. Right?
Yep.
Everybody has their own pizza face label story of disempowerment from the people they love the most, that they would have liked to have heard something else. And when you understand that you can reprogram yourself, like I wrote about in my first book, The Power of Your Identity, it becomes very liberating. If you're willing to put in the reps, like anything else, right? Performance comes from preparation. Separation comes from preparation. So I just put in the reps, and I went from pizza face to ruggedly handsome, changed my identity. I went from working hard to working smart. I went from farm boy to financially free. I went from not being able to have it all to traveling the world 26 times before COVID a year for the last 8 years, running a mastermind group and doing adventurous things while being paid to do it, because that was my dream, to be paid to go to really cool places around the globe. I created that. So there's a lot of power in operating the software that has been given to us and is being poorly programmed by the so-called people that love us or around us because they said no. So it's been a really empowering, liberating, and I have to thank my coaches through NLP and Tony Robbins and people like that that have helped me maintain and accelerate that.
Yeah, and it's powerful. One thing that you said in there is it's the daily repetitions. That's what really matters. We can make that decision to change and pivot our life, but we have to do daily repetitions of however we can to change our mindset so that our actions and our body follow suit with our mind and our intentions. Because so often we say, okay, we're going to shift gears, and that's really where we want to go. But if our brain is still stuck back there and saying those negative thoughts, or like you said, believing you're a pizza face, if you don't change that and repeatedly, day after day, say, nope, I'm that ruggedly handsome person. I'm that ruggedly handsome person. If you don't keep practicing, your mind can't shift, our body can't shift. And that's something I found when I teach people on how to transform their body and calm their nervous system down through breathing. I beg them a couple minutes throughout the day, just please practice, not just one time for a while, but throughout the day, just little bits, because that's how our nervous system changes. It's how our mind changes.
I agree with you 100%. And you know, I got an interesting metaphor for you. I went to Salt Lake City recently for 3 days and I had my dog babysat by somebody else. And I took him for a walk this morning, and normally he's a puppy, so I'm training him, but he's used to my routine and he's used to healing, which staying close to me for the first little while because they want to smell everything. But obviously, because he had a different person walking him with a different behavior, I noticed already just in 3 days that he started to behave a bit differently.
Yeah. So
to your point is you've got to weed the garden on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. Otherwise the pizza face will come back. The I'm not good with money will come back. The I don't have time. I can't have it all. Yeah. Those are all available, right? Like my coach said to me, he goes, you know, the weeds are there and they'll always be available. It's up to you to look at the flower and see them, focus on that, weed the garden quickly, and then focus on the negative's always there, the positive, you have to seek it out. So repetition. And you know that, because I study the top people in the world, and one of the things that the Michael Jordans of the world and the top Olympic athletes say is that, or the coaches of them say, is the reason that they are so good is they've found a way to deal with the monotony of repetition. Yeah,
absolutely believe that. Completely believe that. And one of the things related to what you were just saying about what stays is I often relate it to dementia. If we think about people who we know who have dementia, they lose the most recent stuff first. They have impermanence, and what they remember is all that long-term stuff from when they were a kid. And so we have to keep thinking, okay, what is ingrained in us for a very long time? It's a lot of those negative beliefs. So that's why we have to be persistent, because we want to have those negative beliefs go away and all these positive ones become that long-term stuff. So at the, towards the end of our life, we're not reverting back into that negative space where unfortunately subconscious beliefs were instilled in us by people who didn't always praise us and give us that give us that love and unconditional support. So,
wow, that's a fascinating insight that I've never heard before. So that's where sometimes you see some elderly people, they become kind of a little cranky and bitter and wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go weed some more in my gardens.
Exactly. We're like, I know what I'm doing this afternoon. So, so one of the things that I also appreciate with you is you create systems. So you were talking earlier about creating processes and finding another strategy to live a different life. Can you talk to us a little bit? You have a Sunday system for success. What does that entail?
Yeah, it's so funny because when I first started having this massive success in real estate, I was selling 100 homes a year, where the people down the hallway from me were selling, 10 or 15 homes. People were like, "How are you doing it? It doesn't make sense." And so I started to analyze what I was doing, and I realized that I would have a 7-step process that I would follow, that I had just figured out through trial and error. Because every night what I do is I do an audit of my day. And it's like, how can I make it better? Right? So first I capture what was good. And then I go, where did I make some mistakes or waste time, or I was starving and I didn't have time to eat lunch. And well, maybe if I brought some lunch with me and had it in the car, I could at least eat it in the car while I'm driving between clients and I'm hustling. I'm not going to die. So that audit created this awareness around how I could improve. And then I realized I had these other 7 steps. And then I started to tell people, well, don't you do that? And the people know, I wake up in the morning and decide what I'm going to do that day. I'm like, that does not make sense. I said, I decide a week in advance what my week's going to be like. And they go, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, remember what I said at the beginning is separation comes from preparation.
Yep.
And so, and I have another word a sentence I say is, pay the price of practice in private to perform in public like a pro. And what you do before, the event is what makes you perform at a high level. What you do on Sunday to prepare for the week is what makes you better than the people that wait till Monday morning. Yeah. So I have this 7-step process that is legendary, and people tend to save about 5 to 10 hours a week when they follow it. They arrive to their problems confident, even if they're stressed, because they've rehearsed, the meeting before in their mind. They have the resources. They're not showing up with, no gym bag to go to class, or no, they show up with the wrong, clothing for an event, or no bottle of wine to go to a friend's party, because it's all being planned, thought out in advance. And I'm not a nerd, at least I don't think I am, but it sounds a little bit like, oh, Rock, I don't want to over prepare. No, it's about being intelligent.
Yeah.
And I say to people, if you're a parent, do you just send your child off to school wearing pajamas and no lunch? No, you thought, okay, what does my child need? You actually went through the process that I teach for the child, but you don't do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And so it falls into the category of self-care, so you can show up your best self. When the plane loses oxygen, the oxygen masks fall out, who do they say to put the oxygen mask on first? Quickly put it on your child? No. Make sure you're strong and capable, and now you can help others. Yeah. So the Sunday system for success is this system that allows you to be the best version of yourself, to take care of yourself, to show up prepared, and it'll even make you luckier. So yeah, I guess I'm a nerd from a systems perspective, but I do it because it allows me to have a great life. And people say to me, well, how do you have 42 streams of income? Because I have a system and a process for every single one. Yeah. And that allows me to move on to the next one once that one's on cruise control.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes sense. And it kind of goes along with a lot of us like routine. When you have this process where you're setting up your week, it kind of gives you that routine where you can just go from one thing to the next, and there's this flow. And then one thing I do, like what you said, was auditing yourself, seeing what worked, what didn't work. Sometimes we think about that with business. You go and you try something. Okay, did that work? Did that help me? Did that help the business grow or not? But if you do it on this micro scale of your daily, regimen and schedule and appointments, you can start to shift quicker. You can see problems faster.
Let me tell you an insight that I got on why people don't do it. And when I teach corporations or salespeople to do this, and we go through the process, the first thing they do after they've done a sales presentation, and then we go through what I call a CSI and ask those 3 questions, the first thing they do is, well, I should have done this and I should have said that. And I go, no, do you remember step 1 is to capture where you were a rock star? What was great? Yeah. Okay, well, I was... And they can barely think of anything. So what happens to the brain is that when you continually do something and then you beat yourself up, you don't want to actually look at it. So people delete and distort things because they don't want to visit the experience they had where they shoulda, woulda, coulda been better, followed up, bought the stock, sold the stock, bought real estate 10 years ago. So they don't go there. How do you get better at something if you don't visit it? You can't. So you've got to have the discipline, in my opinion, is to celebrate, even if it's like, I remember once I did a talk and it was like, you know what? My shoes were shiny. Yeah, go rock go, And that's like all I had. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the important part, right? And I can build on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you capture the good things, you celebrate with yourself, then you want to visit. You build yourself up, you feel better about yourself, and then you go, what could I have done better? Yeah. And when you get in that practice and you build it in that order, then you'll do the audits on a regular basis versus what do most people do. Most people can't teach you, even if they're successful, how they do it. Great salesperson, you say, okay, how do I become a great salesperson? They go, what's your routine? Well, I don't know. I just wake up. Like most people don't know. So that's, I think, why I'm a great teacher is because I, analyze and I ruminate on what I did and how I showed up.
Yeah.
So if I ever have to explain it to anybody, I've visited it so many times.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually implement what you teach, which is not always the case. Some teachers out there, they take it and just pass it along, but they don't implement it. And it's hard to catch errors or mistakes or just ways you can improve unless you're actually practicing yourself. So, which comes to your podcast, you're very movement action oriented. And so you have a podcast called I Am Movement. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it started a little bit from what we talked about before, the words that follow I am follow you. And if you say, I am broke and I am lazy and I am not a swimmer, then that's how you're going to show up. You're not going to go, I'm not a swimmer and then jump in the pool and start doing laps. It just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So the whole process of this podcast is helping people understand that if they set an intention on how they want to be, they should write it out, should create some clarity around it. And if you visit my house, you'll see I have white sheets all on the walls, and I'm constantly looking at the things I want to move toward and create. Words create your world. So I'm a multimillionaire. I'm an elite athlete. I'm a ripped athletic machine. So I use words that I may not be 100%, but they're where I want to move toward. Yeah. And I think if people would understand that they're creating their own world with their words, that, saying I'm a procrastinator and I'm lazy, which a lot of people will do, is not going to have you lead a legendary life. It's not. I don't think that Steve Jobs walked around going, I'm a procrastinator and I'm lazy. In fact, if anybody said that around him, they probably got fired, right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
So just decide what you want to be and describe it intentionally, and you're going to bump up against some of your limiting beliefs. You can't just walk around going and saying, I'm a millionaire, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. It doesn't work that way. There is, again, a process to, upgrading the software, that we teach. But if you are not satisfied with where you are, I can promise you the words, the inner narrative is reflecting the result that you have on the outside world that you don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully believe that. And many of the guests, I've listened to many of your episodes now, they have these great stories of transformation, making an impact on, society or their niche. It's incredible. And they're all very conversational. You can relate to them. You learn tidbits about them. I know I was listening to one, and he was talking about when he hires new employees, that he gives a gift to the person's spouse or partner, whomever it is, to just bring that person into this new job. And it was just really incredible, because when you listen to entrepreneurs, they've tried different things, they've failed, they've made mistakes, they've grown. They learn these little tiny pieces that just add to someone's life. And that's one of the things I like about your podcast is you share people who've done that. and you can start to implement things right away. So I thank you for having a podcast and sharing that.
Yeah, well, it's a cute little, you know, tidbit that you got, and I like to look at it as, I use the words nuance or distinction, right? The success is in the details, and the fact that you pay attention to a little thing like that, remember, it says a lot about, who you are. But I think a lot of people are looking for the silver bullet. They want the home run, they want the easy way, and they don't realize that if somebody's lived a life for 20, 30, 40 years and they write a book, or they're a teacher, a speaker, and you can learn little things like that you might never think of in your entire life or come across, because you didn't have the same journey they had, right? You could learn from, you don't have to have your father pass away to cancer to learn that the three things I said before, or maybe something you should pay attention to and have a strategy around them, so that your body, you have the best chance of having this vehicle that carries your soul vibrate at the highest level.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but maybe go to people that are, incredibly good with their body, incredibly good with their nutrition, really good at handling stress. Maybe Amy is an example to change your breathing, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that you're also the type of person that is not just eating what everybody else eats around you because it's normal. It doesn't mean it's natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also hear the words often on that topic, I eat better than the rest of the population. There's that misnomer I hear a lot. And it does take an open mind to absorb information and think, should I change my mindset? Should I change my action? Should I research this a little bit more? And it's not to say to take things blindly, but sometimes we need to research more and see, okay, there must be a reason this person keeps telling me this, or multiple people keep telling me this. I need to stop, pause, look in the mirror and say, okay, something's going on. I need to shift. And then finding the right mentors, the right exposure, the right environment, and try, which I'm learning so much makes a big difference in our lives.
Yeah, I think we're not a society that puts a lot of value on awareness.
Yeah.
Because we're constantly, scrolling through our phone or listening to something, or just everywhere you walk now, there's a screen somewhere. I mean, just everywhere, doctor's office, the grocery store, the airport, everywhere. So you really don't get to be with yourself that often. And it's through that being with yourself that you can see the patterns that aren't serving you. And it's not always that pleasant, right? As things bubble up. I've recently learned to use this phrase and say, hey, Amy, is it okay? I'm feeling a little vulnerable right now. Is it okay if I share something with you, or are you going to, trample all over me?
Yeah.
And just creating that context in a conversation so that you don't have to be weak, but you can give permission to go into a vulnerable conversation with another person that allows them to now be a little bit more gentle, and you can both grow.
That's great.
And so that's another distinction that I got as I got that from one of my coaches, and I've used it recently, and it's actually incredibly powerful because the other person slows down, takes a breath, and now leans in and now is a little bit kinder to you. And you actually get what we all want, is closeness and connection.
Absolutely.
Instead of going, well, my floods, well, look at your fat nose, right? Instead of, you could respond by saying, you know what? I'm feeling a little vulnerable right now, and my folks are struggling with their money, and we can't afford, right?
Yeah.
Another pair of jeans for me. So I'm sorry that I look like a goof, but you do that, you'll probably be ridiculed at school. But if you asked permission to be vulnerable, there's a chance that it might land a little bit better.
Yeah, it really makes a person take a pause. When you just said that to me, it put me in a different space where I'm like, I'm going to receive and listen with everything I have. And then how can I help you? It changes my energy into one of helping and, like you said, connection. What can I do for you in any way possible to help you express what you need to express. It really shifts the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. Very, very nice. So I'd like to kind of just, can you tell us a little bit more about M1? What is it that makes up the mastermind? How can people learn more about you and the tribe?
So 8 years ago, after doing 14 years at Tony Robbins, I realized that people would go to events, an ecosystem, a different area, and they would get very excited about possibilities. And because I've been doing it so long, I would bump into a lot of people that would come back a year or 2 or 3 or 5 later. And the overarching theme was that their life has actually not really gotten better. So I started to study it out of curiosity, and I realized that it was their environment at home that pulled them back down because they wanted connection with their friends, the friends that weren't striving as hard as they would. The people at the office thought it was crazy that they were drinking green juice instead of coffee. And so they felt separated from their environment, and they had no place to elevate themselves and to grab life big. So I thought, this is a shame, and I felt the same thing myself. So I said, what if I create this ecosystem where you can live your life, but you have a place that you go to a few hours a week virtually, a few events a year virtually if you want to. But the conversation and the narrative with technology allows us, you and I can meet on a Zoom call once a week, talk about our goals and our dreams, be vulnerable with each other. You can correct my language, you can point things out, because we've agreed, right? Yeah. We have a contract with each other that our goal is to support, encourage, and elevate each other. And from that context, you visit that and you're very excited because it's almost like this mental and emotional spiritual gym that you get to go to 4 to 5 hours a week. And then you can go back and you can handle your friends and your life and your business and your disappointments at a higher vibration, knowing there's a whole bunch of other seekers all over the planet that get there's an epic way to live.
Yeah.
And so it's been my pride and joy over the last 8 years to help thousands of people transform their life, have a place to go, leave their W-2 and become entrepreneurs, lose weight, quit smoking, stop drinking. The list goes on and on and on of literally tens of thousands of people that I've affected in a small way or in a complete transformational way of their entire family and life. And the reason I choose to do it is that if I can affect your multiple gardens, there's a chance that your environment, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, your neighbor picks a little bit of that ripple effect up. When when the weather's bad and the storm knocks a tree into your house and you're laughing about it and you're saying, what's great about this? The neighbor's like, what? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It has that ripple effect. So, So we launch a group every couple of months, and just people who want to grab life big and are looking for a better strategy. And really, we've all heard this before. You're the sum of the 5 people you spend time with. Yep. Well, if 9 of your friends are broke, you're the 10th. 6 of your friends are out of shape, you're the 7th. So if you want to hang out with people that, want to grab life big and are doing their best to be the healthiest, wealthiest, most generous version of themselves, then this is the tribe for you.
That's great. So how can people learn more?
Just send me an email, rock@rockthomas.com.
Okay.
You can follow me on, obviously, all the handles and social media today.
Yeah.
I'm even on TikTok now.
Wow. I'm impressed. I haven't even gone there yet. Very nice.
But it's an interesting vehicle as well. So you'll find me on all the social media. But the best thing, if people are really serious, just send me an email and then let's get into a conversation and find out where you are, where you want to go, and if there's something we have that can facilitate that. Because I don't know what people want.
Yeah.
But if they tell me what they want, pretty sure I can provide them with a path or a tool, and that gets exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree. And connecting by email allows you to have kind of more honest conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, any last bits of advice, anything else you'd like to share with us today?
I would say that one of the biggest gifts that I learned in life was the ability to say yes to things bigger than yourself and learn that you'll figure it out. Yeah. Jump off the cliff and grow your wings on the way down. Something great happens in your human spirit and psyche when you step just outside of your comfort zone. You become more alive, you become more aware, you pay more attention. Stop fighting to stay comfortable.
Yeah.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I know it's so cliche, but I could tell you 100 stories of things where I said yes to something that was outside my knowledge or comfort, and I figured it out and allowed me to grow a business or to get on a private jet with somebody or to get on a celebrity apprentice when I had no skills, to become an actor, to become a model. There are so many things I did in my life. Teaching Japanese people how to speak English when I had no skill set, but I was desperate in need of making some money while I was in Thailand. Driving a taxi in Australia. I never would have done those things if I didn't have this little voice inside that said you could figure it out. And I know I got that from growing up on a farm, because you grow up on a farm, the horses want to be fed, whether it's Christmas or you're sick. So I developed this belief that I could always find a way. So I want to transfer and donate or loan to people out there that belief, is believe you could figure it out. Just say yes and trust yourself. You'll find a way. You'll either win or learn, but both of those are good. There's no winning and losing.
Yeah.
When you embrace that, your life will change forever.
Yeah. I love that. You'll either win or learn. I love that. That's awesome. Completely and fully agree with that. It's great to challenge ourselves and just go with it. And most of the times you'll find support when you didn't even know you had it.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Great conversation. Really appreciate your time on the weekend, especially a Sunday afternoon when you could be golfing. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. You're a sweetheart.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us today for the Weekend Wellness Hour show. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We will see you again next week. Until then, have a great, healthy life. Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.